So today is the 9th of October 2023, and give you a little update. Haven't been doing just massive amounts back here, but I'll show you what I've been up to and what some thoughts are here. I got this transom ready to start putting plywood on. I finished doing some sanding there, and I've done a little bit more work on the hull bottom planking there, get it cleaned up and ready to go. But I'm ready to start putting plywood on here, so I was waiting for the weather to cool off enough that I could work on getting this plywood up there. But one thing I need to do before getting the raw plywood put up there, is to make life a little easier on myself. I'm going to coat the plywood in fiberglass cloth, the outside layer of fiberglass cloth first, and then put it up, and then where there's joints we'll have to put a little, I've got some fiberglass cloth coming in. It's just some little skinny little rolls, 4-inch and 6-inch wide rolls, and we'll do seams, cover seams up after it's on the boat. But here's the first sheet that I've got prepped, and you can see it's kind of shiny and glossy and whatnot. That's a layer of 10-ounce fiberglass, which is this stuff here, this big old roll here. This is, like I said, 10-ounce fiberglass, which is fairly heavy. You know, a lot of people use 6-ounce for just an exterior waterproof coating like this. 10-ounce, yeah. What really this fiberglass does is it gives you abrasion resistance, and it also holds more epoxy. You can saturate it with more amount of epoxy, so you get a thicker epoxy coating on the waterproof coating on the outside of the hull. It really doesn't add a lot of strength to the boat. That's not really its purpose. But you can see here, I've got epoxy on this layer of fiberglass. You can see it's looking, you know, fairly shiny, but there are still some areas that are not. You know, like there's an area in there that's a little dry yet. Not dry, but the weave isn't completely filled with resin yet. And this is 2 coats, well 3 actually. I put 1 coat of liquid epoxy down, and then I pulled the fiberglass out over it, cut it off, and then I put another coat of epoxy on it. So there's 2 layers of epoxy initially when I put the fiberglass on. And then today I came out and I put 1 more layer. I cut the edges off. Actually, I didn't cut them. This was, you know, like this on the edges here. I used my sander with some 80 grit sandpaper and just sand around the periphery here a little bit. That stuff just falls right off, providing it's saturated with epoxy fully out to the edge. Yeah, and you do radius the edge of this plywood just a little bit, I suppose, doing that. But I think that's good anyway, because you're going to have that tape over all the seams. So it gives you, even if you radius the edge just a little bit, it gives it a little bit of an area for it to fill in with epoxy when it's put up on the boat. So this will probably need 1 more coat, but I think I will give it 1 more coat once it's on the boat, as opposed to another coat down here. But getting this stuff up on the boat is going to be the issue, and I've always worried about this, and I've got one surviving uncle. He's 94 or 95 now. He was out here yesterday, and that was the first thing he said too, was, how are you going to get it up there? I said, I don't know. I almost need another person to help with this. So yeah, John's going to try to help. We'll see how it goes. We're still going to have to get it up there somehow. I mean, to help support it in place one way or another. And I'm not sure what we're going to do yet, but we're going to try it. I think probably tomorrow, once this epoxy here that I put on today is cured, I think we'll try to get this first sheet up tomorrow. And of course, these first 3 sheets on the stern here on the transom should be pretty easy. I mean, it's a little bit of an angle up, but it's not too bad. And I also have the chain hoist. We can actually screw a clamping device of some sort. I think I've got a handle. We can just put a couple screws in that and then use that to pull it up there. That's going to only work for that one though. But But we can get the first one up, and that'll make it easier to get the next couple up. We'll see how it goes. I'm a little leery of this whole process. Yeah, I debated some other things. Well, and then once we get this fiberglass on an epoxy on the external layer here on the plywood, and then get it up there, how do you glue it up onto the boat? Well, I was planning on using epoxy, but now you're going to have to paint the entire back side of this thing with liquid epoxy, the same area, corresponding area on the surface of the hull, and then you have to put some thickened epoxy on there, get it up there, hold it in position while it's all wet and dripping with epoxy. So I'm starting to have some second thoughts as to how practical that's going to be, trying to get that sheet up there and with liquid epoxy on the back side of the sheet and on the transom. I'm wondering if maybe I shouldn't use some sort of a construction adhesive. It comes in like in a caulking tube. Use a waterproof construction adhesive that has some gap filling abilities and some pretty strong gluing abilities also. That would be significantly easier to put up there, I think. We could just mark the area where the new sheet goes and use the caulking gun to put the caulking up there and then put the sheet in place, and not have the sheet all greasy and nasty with epoxy. I don't know. I don't really think it matters, quite frankly. I don't think cost is going to be that much different either way. I mean, epoxy is not cheap, but that tubes of caulk might actually be a little bit more expensive, but you're probably not going to need quite as much. You're not going to put quite as much up there, and it doesn't need 100% coverage, I don't think. The only thing is, if I do decide to do that, if I do decide to use the caulking, the adhesive, as opposed to the epoxy, well, then I really should coat all these surfaces with the copper naphthenate, which isn't a big deal. Before I put the plywood up, which isn't a big deal, but I mean, it's fairly easy to do. You can use a roller and put it on, but still, it needs a few days to dry after you've applied it. And I've got copper naphthenate on a lot of these planks out here. I did this summer because I wanted to control mold, but yeah, I don't know what's going to work best. George called for using even something as simple as powdered glue, the stuff you mix with water, to glue those sheets on there. I've never used that stuff. I don't think it's very prevalent anymore. That was probably 20, 30 years ago it was. But maybe a common, more popular nowadays would be something like Tight Bond 3. So I suppose we could do that. You could take a roller or whatever and roll that on. And that stuff isn't horribly expensive. I don't know, last time I bought it was 20 something a gallon. Of course, it's probably 40 something a gallon now, but then you've got the same situation you had before. You've got two surfaces that are coated in a sticky, yicky glue, and you got to try to maneuver a sheet up there and hold it in place and get it tacked in place, essentially, before you finish screwing it in. I don't know. The construction adhesive or a marine polyurethane adhesive would in some ways be a lot simpler. What we want to do is, when the plywood's up there, and George did not necessarily say that it needed to be glued on in all cases, but yeah, you put enough screws in, it's going to do the same thing. But if it's glued in place, any twisting or racking motion that you might get out of the hull should pretty much be eliminated. It ties everything together. Now, do I really think this boat is going to twist and the planks are going to twist? I don't think it's going to twist much. There's an awful lot of material here. There's an awful solid keel here. The hull is awful solid. Yeah, I know boats move when they're in the water, and the wood moves, and even steel boats can move a little bit. And fiberglass boats, of course, move a lot, but plastic boats. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But you know, geez, if you can make it that much stronger by putting that plywood on and tying everything together, like with glue and screws, I think that would be something that would be a good idea. So however I go about doing that, whether I use epoxy or just put a lot of construction type adhesive on there, we shall see. I don't know. I was thinking maybe trying to use epoxy and put these transom sheets on there with epoxy and thickened epoxy. But the more I think about it, and the more I'm leaning maybe towards going with the polyurethane adhesive. Yeah. I don't know. I will take you up here. And that's maybe one of the reasons I've been dragging my feet just a little bit, is I just can't quite decide for sure what I want to do, what's going to be best. And I don't know, looking at what other people done, some people have just put a mastic down, or a bedding compound of one sort or another down. Oops. Between their plywood, layers of plywood. And I don't know, I don't think I want to go that route. Alright, moving inside the boat, I've been doing a little bit of work in here. Not a lot, a little. This doorway here, going into the cabin, I made a couple of basically 2x2s here, and I epoxied them to the 2 layers of 1/2-inch plywood, and then ran some screws in there also to give me a nice solid doorway. I don't know if I want to do that over here or not. Probably not quite as wide here. I don't know. Don't want to get this doorway too narrow, but so in the head here, I might just put a smaller piece in here. But yeah, this will give me a little more to grab to for the hinges to grab onto, which I got a bunch of these little stainless steel hinges here. These are supposed to be door hinges, so hopefully they're heavy enough. I was going to put 3 of them on here, but you know, if you got them here, and just laying them on the flush on the wall, and then to the door too. Yeah, and I got some door hardware that is the same type thing. It's designed for a flush latch system, door latch system. And this is just going to be a piece of 3/4-inch plywood in here, and I'll put a little bit of trim on the edges. I don't know if I got that stuff up here. I think I left it down there, down lower. And this is some more oak trim here too, and this is what I'm going to use behind the door as a door stop. So if the door sits in here, you know, 3/4 of an inch, then I'll put a piece in here, back here on this side, so that it'll cover the little gap and create a place for the door to stop on. I think I showed you this. I got the inside of these painted and going. I got some more wiring stuff. I haven't done a lot more wiring, but I've got more wiring stuff to go. And I brought a little station up here to work with the epoxy for various different things here. So yeah, it's progressing slowly, I guess. But the real big deal is getting figured out how I'm going to go about getting that plywood on. And I think maybe this week, I think John's got to go to a doctor's visit this week, and I might go with him and pick up some of that construction adhesive. I might pick up an electric caulking gun too, because I'm not real thrilled about pumping out all that much caulk with a mechanical caulking gun, or caulk or adhesive, I guess it is really. But anyway, that's where we stand on the 9th of October.